This is the third video in the series for PAL candidates. We're going to focus today on limits of collaboration and the rules of assessment participation. And what I've done is I've shared this document with you before. This is the Limits and Guidelines document. That's what the title is, Limits and Guidelines of PAL Task Completion. Now, I pulled this from the Mass website, the Candidate Assessment Handbook, the confidentiality and anonymity form, the rules of assessment participation document, and also from the Field Guide for Leadership Prep Program. Watching this video and reading this document meant to be introductory. They're not meant to be exhaustively complete. So I'm going to start with the Administrative Field Guide for Leadership Prep Programs. So it says here, program faculty and others offering support should stress to candidates that fabricating evidence, duplicating the work of others, not citing sources of information, or plagiarizing work will disqualify their submission and possibly their licensure opportunity. They're really serious about this stuff. They do want you to cite the source of adopted materials appropriately. They do want you to list where appropriate, who you've been collaborating with and what your role was in collaboration. Right here it says candidates must describe any and all points of collaboration with other individuals, including the rationale or purpose of the collaboration, and clearly state their role in the collaboration, the roles of the collaborators. In terms of formative support, that is the kind of support you're going to be getting from other people as you build your product for submission. PAL program people really want to make clear that the most critical support for program faculty to provide is that which fosters the candidate's knowledge and understanding of the PAL tasks and their relationship to program coursework, field work, and formative assessment experiences. So an ideal way to clarify what PAL requires and to prepare candidates to successfully complete its 4 tasks is to discuss the rubrics listed with the 4 tasks. These are in the assessment handbook. Now, with some of you, I have spoken to you about what those rubrics do, what exactly they stipulate. And when I do an overview of the handbook and the specific task sections, I will guide you through that and kind of break down the rubric and show you what they're talking about. So these are acceptable forms of formative support, okay? You can distribute PAL support documents. They cannot include draft or final submissions from PAL candidates. So that's where I draw the line on you shouldn't even be sharing your drafts. You can talk about it, your draft, you can talk about your ideas, but sharing that stuff is a different story. Anybody who's advising you can provide explanations of terminology and concepts, that's fine. You can examine the language structure and progression of the PAL rubrics, as I've stated before. People can assign formative tasks during the coursework, like analyzing video clips of teaching, leading a professional learning group of teachers, analyzing district and school data. That's all fine. Use rubric constructs or rubric language to debrief observations made by field supervisors. So using that language is fine. People can offer candidate seminars focusing on the skills and abilities that PAL requires candidates to possess, and arrange technical and video support, logistical support for video recording and uploading documents. So if you're having trouble with that, you can get support for that, and that's not a violation. There are acceptable types of feedback. This is also worth paying attention to. Once candidates draft artifacts and commentaries for their summative PAL portfolio to be submitted for official scoring, faculty or anybody else, advisors, people coaching you, must limit their direction and feedback to the candidates. So what they do here again is they break it out for you really clearly in a table. So let's look at some of these examples because I think they're useful. Program resources. What's acceptable is to direct candidates to the program website to access the candidate assessment handbook and all the other resources that are there. You can't display your drafts or final versions, nor can anyone display their drafts or final versions for you, even if they're just to be used as examples for you to work by. You can't do that. Now, where the rubrics are concerned, it's okay to explain rubric constructs or rubric language, go into details about how they're going to be used to score you. no one can use those rubrics as a way of providing formal feedback and scores on drafts of your work products. So the stipulation there is you can talk about the rubrics and how they will be used, but you cannot actually employ them or somebody else can't employ them in revising your drafts to improvement. Leadership strategies and materials. People who work with you can discuss leadership strategies or materials in a seminar or field observation, but it's up to candidates to make selections and or adaptations based on knowledge of the schools, teachers, and students. So in other words, somebody who's working with you cannot and should not make choices about leadership strategies or materials for you. That has to be, even that level of decision-making has to be original to you. Here's some stipulations for encouragement of collaborative work. Okay. It's okay to encourage candidates to work with others to complete their tasks, including forming work groups. People can advise candidates that they must submit original work, even when the work is created collaboratively, and provide appropriate attribution to the work of others. So that's all fine. That's basically how they're telling you to do this work. What cannot happen then is that no one can advise candidates that it's acceptable to submit duplicate artifacts for work that was collaboratively performed. So if you work with a group of 3 people to get something done, you can't all submit the same document. Feedback. It's okay to encourage candidates to reflect on their work products in reference to theory, coursework, and research, and to reach their own conclusions about their leadership practice. What's not okay is for anyone to provide alternative responses to commentary prompts or to suggest changes to make in a PAL draft or a final version. You can't even suggest that. And it's also not okay to use PAL rubrics to provide scores for official PAL work products. You can look at your own work and use the rubric to assess for yourself, but nobody else should be doing that for you as a way of contributing or editing your own content. In terms of editing, it's okay to refer candidates to appropriate copy editing resources for basic stuff, grammar, usage, spelling, punctuation, that's all fine. But it is not okay for anybody who is in a leadership position or even a collaborator position, anything like that, to edit any commentaries or artifacts. So electronic platforms. It's okay for those platforms to support candidates' efforts to upload their work products into the platform. It's not okay for anybody else to upload artifacts, documents, or commentaries for you. You have to be able to do that yourself. And then finally, in terms of technical assistance, it's okay to arrange technical resources for video recording and guidance with uploading documents into electronic platforms. That basically follows what was said before. You can get help in terms of having access to technical resources. Conversely, you'll see here, okay, it's not all right for anybody to support candidates in telling them which clips to select, which video clips to review, or offer formal feedback or scoring of the clips. Obviously, nobody should tell you you're exempt from the video recordings. And then I'm going to just cover this final section on collaboration and required disclosure. You can collaborate with others, as it says here. Failure to disclose collaboration as required in this section may result in disqualification of the candidate's submissions and the imposition of sanctions on his or her educator license. So they're serious about this stuff. You don't want to get a letter of reprimand to your ELAR file or face any other licensure consequences. That would obviously undermine everything you're trying to do. And then lastly, you want to ensure in your PAL confidentiality and anonymity form that you've protected the rights of the people who are part of your work. So that's making sure that everyone in there is anonymous. All your written documentation is stripped of any identifying information. Right here is the remove personal identifying information related to you, your program, and your faculty. And it should be the same for the people who are in your videos or people referenced in any of the things that you're writing. And there are guidelines for how to do that as well. So that's all in the handbook, and we'll go over that. The Massachusetts PAL Rules of Assessment Participation is something that's laid out in great detail in the handbook, and I will show you where that is. It covers much of what we've already covered. Confirmation of originality is an important piece, but it basically reinforces that you understand that everything that's been laid out for you as limits of your participation, or guidelines, I should say, as your participation, limits of your ability to share or use information from other people. All right, I hope that's been helpful to you. I know it's a lot to cover, and I hope it's covered in a clear way.